Here's the question. Are you prepared to shift to listings as your primary focus in 2024?
Let's chat about that today on the Wandering But Not Lost podcast.
You've reached the WB&L Wandering But Not Lost podcast, where real estate and reality meet. And now your hosts, Jan O'Brien and Matt Emerson.
Well, welcome everyone to the WB&L Wandering But Not Lost podcast, where real estate and reality meet. This is episode 273. You can find all those show notes over at WBNLpodcast.com. Jan O'Brien, here we are. We're this is funny. I always feel like, we've been doing this podcast for so many years. It's like you get to certain parts of the year and it's just like the same thing has come out of your mouth. Like, I can't believe it's already the middle of January. And, but it is crazy. Time goes on.
Can you really believe it?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
I don't like it, to be honest. I'm looking to see if I can...
Although we are enjoying the cold weather that has hit the western part of the United States, it is a treat, I think.
I'm putting a little light in my background. I'm trying something different, a different way to do it. It's not really going to work out. Whatever, I'll try it. I'm just working on my lighting, folks. It's just a stage, home recording studio challenges.
And since Jan and I are just talking about technical stuff we're doing, Jan, I forgot about this. I want to tell you this now so we remember it later. You can now record portrait style in StreamYard.
Really?
Yep.
What do you mean portrait style? You mean
like would fit on TikTok or YouTube or Insta stories?
Really?
Yep. So FYI, we might want to try a podcast that way.
Okay, well, things are changing. That's what
there you go. There's a couple behind the scenes tips here on the WB&L Wandering But Not Lost podcast.
I like it, and I think that you've got to be ready. And we're going to talk about that today because I'm very excited to say that, I'm doing my year-end working on for my business in Las Vegas. I do a monthly marketing update, and so I just got the December stats, which also. Our MLS puts out annual stats, which I love because it goes back like 10 years. So I'm going to be covering a recap of what happened in 2023, where we've come over the last 3 years. We're talking a little bit about that today and how you can use some of this information out with your sellers, because we're mainly talking about getting listings today. And predictions for what I've been thinking, what I've been feeling is going to happen this year, being so much into the market. And then I watched the... Brian Buffini. It's interesting. I logged into our SkySlope, is how we do our transactions. Yeah. And there was the Brian Buffini bold predictions, which he's been doing for like 7-8 years, which is always very good because if you haven't seen it yet, you can get the link in our show notes. Actually, just go over to our show notes, WBNLpodcast.com. What are we, episode 273?
273.
I recommend watching that video between him, and it's got the chief economist, Dr. Lawrence Yun, who's always on there with him. And I grabbed some of those charts that they both had. Going to talk a little bit about that today. And I'm going to use these in my annual recap and projection of what I think is going to happen. And I'm happy to say that what I have been saying in my monthly videos about opportunities to buy right now, I think are good because I think it's going to change. And I think you have to shift as a realtor. If you're listening, you've got to shift to getting ready to take listings because there is huge buyer pent up demand, but there's also sellers who are ready to make moves who haven't. The normal amount of sellers that would make moves haven't because they have incredibly low interest rates.
That's right.
I mean, 70% plus of people that have a mortgage are under 4%. That's why they haven't moved unless they've had to. So if that's true, and let's start with that. What do we think is going to happen? And so go watch that. I was happy to say that they agree with me or I'm on track, whatever. It was validation that stay on top of the market. You can see if you've been in the business for a minute, you can kind of see where things are going. It's not rocket science, but you do have to be a student of the market. So we definitely across the country have huge pent up demand. And I've been saying it all year long on our podcast. I say it all the time when we're having our one-on-one consults with buyers. So many buyers that we talked to last year, Matt said, I think we're going to wait. And it was one of two things. We're going to wait for the interest rates to come down and or generally both, and wait for prices to come down. Well, prices went up halfway through the year. And out here in Vegas, they stayed steady at $450 median price for about 4 or 5 months in a row. as it turns out. So they're not going down, and they're not going down because there's low inventory, because sellers aren't putting their homes on the market, and builders had a very, 10 years of not building to the standard that was needed before COVID. So we have this situation, and now Matt and I were just talking about before we got started on the show today, and I just think it's the mentality of people. So right after COVID, people were still hoping we'd get to 4% interest rates again. Okay. Now time has gone by. We're a couple years past that, and we hit 8% last year, and that shocked people, and that put more people on the sidelines. So let's recap. Not 2 years ago in 2022, May is when the interest rates went over 6%. That started the downturn of less sales for the country, less people buying homes. That really is what happened. And the bottom line is, it just did. It went down. I think it's going to be about 18% nationally, and it's higher in different markets, but 18% less closed transactions year over year in 2023 is what it looks like nationally, according to a chart that we're showing here. And Matt, will you just go back, because I want to just talk about a couple of those other points, but we'd have some charts that show these, that I recommend that you grab these or go to NAR or go to that Brian Buffini stuff. Just give the credit on where the charts and stuff are coming from. But the mentality is we're not going to 4. I call it the unicorn years, unless we have another global crisis. Okay. Unless we have to go back to everybody is staying in their homes and not spending money, and the Fed and the inflation is down to, below 2. It's not going to happen again, folks. That was inflated. It was manufactured to get people out buying things, and it worked too well, because everybody went out and bought houses. The prices went skyrocketing. That's why we are in the situation that we're in. And then inflation kicks in, and now people put the rent, which is what the Fed had to do, was to increase interest rates to get people to stop buying.
Right.
And guess what? In the housing market, it worked by about 20%. Okay. So that's what's happened. So we have pent up demand for sellers who are ready to move. The typical sellers that want to downsize, that want to move for whatever their reasons are. We're like, I'm not moving to go from 3.75 to 7.5.
That's right.
Right. So the big question is, when are the rates going to come down? That's what everybody wants to know. If we all had a crystal ball, we'd be really rich and probably not selling real estate. Now, the Fed is forecasting that they're going to do 3 to 4 adjustments down in the new year. It's an election year. I personally feel it's going to take, I think the first couple quarters are going to be similar to what we got right now. That's my feeling. I think the Fed is not going to do it too quickly and too rapid to make too many deep adjustments, because the concern will be we'll roll back into inflation and this vicious cycle. It's always about supply and demand. But the bottom line is, this group mentality thing that I'm saying is, I think we've gotten far enough away from 4% and lower that 6 something is starting to sound good, right? So we're still at 6.5, 6.7, depends on if it's FHA or conventional. We're under 7. And I personally think when the rates say 5 something, the dams are going to break and people are going to go flooding the streets looking for houses to buy, which when that happens and there's not enough, so sellers will put their homes on the market, but will they put them on the market at the numbers needed by the demand? So the question is going to be, as this all starts to play out in 2024, I think that there'll be, the homes will be, absorbed. That was the word I was looking for. The absorption rate will be there. In other words, we won't have so much inventory and not enough people buying it. Okay. That's what we're going to have to see, because if there's still, not enough inventory and a huge demand, we're going to get back into bidding wars, people overpaying for things. So this is why today we wanted to talk about, get ready to shift from, do you want to work with buyers and you have to write 20 offers, is where I want to go. Because that's what it was in the COVID years, right?
It's really, this is the key. And it's been fun to watch you, Jan, over the last few years, really focus on really being more of a, really studying the marketplace and being able to really, discuss the ins and outs and the, the nuances of it with your clients. It's going to be so key in the next year to be able to show your buyers and or sellers, whoever you're talking to, that because they're going to be hearing 5 in their head, right? And that it's going to be keep going down. We're going to wait till it gets to the lowest. Well, you need to show them and really demonstrate to them what their mortgage rate is going to, or their mortgage payment is going to be at 6.2 versus 5.8. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
and don't wait for all the reasons you just said, because
Right.
if you're going to wait around, you're going to be in the battle. Right, so be ahead of the wave on this, and maybe pay a little bit more on the.
And what frustrates me so, being a seasoned agent and
Right.
talking to so many buyers this year, is that so many people feel like you're just trying to sell them something.
Yeah.
And we come across, and it's like we're the least salesy people ever.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I feel bad for people that we've talked to, who we've shown. And this is the point that came out in the bold predictions by Brian Buffini too, is that there is plenty of proof in the new homes. And I personally live this. This is what he said,
Yep.
That people will buy in the 5.5s because that's what builders are doing to get people to buy. Right. So we already have in the new home model the reality that the rates are here and people will go get 5.5. And we've gotten people at 4.75. We got somebody right now that's getting a 4.75 fixed, that they're going to be closing in March. Fixed. There will be no time anytime soon he'll need to refi, because I don't see the rates coming to 4.75 anytime soon.
For a while, for sure.
Now, the problem with all that is people have waited, and now we're going to jump into the latter part of next year, mid-year, whenever the rates get into that low below 6. And all these people are going to jump back into the market, go, okay, I'm ready to go now. And it's kind of like they're thinking we're the only ones that want to buy a house. No, you and millions of people are going to jump back into the market, across the country. Hundreds of thousands of people, maybe not millions, hundreds of thousands of people, because we're going to go back up. We have some data to share with you here. But my point is, listings are where it's going to be, because would you rather be working with the buyer who's FHA, and having to write 20 offers because they're losing out to cash and people who are putting 20% down, which is just unfortunate for the buyer, okay? Or the person who's in control of the listing, where the chaos you have is managing multiple offers and figuring out what's best for your seller, helping your seller figure that out. So shift to listings. Let's talk about it. We covered a couple. There's great graphs in here that you can use that talk about median sales price, how it went high a couple years ago, dipped down, and then went back up again, and then it leveled off a little bit. So nationally, but this is great to see nationally. What I like about the national charts, everybody, is use those and show your expertise by going, here's what you might be seeing in the news, but let me show you what's happening here locally in Las Vegas. Yep. We're not exactly doing that, right? Okay.
Different story, for
sure. It's all good. And so we have a couple other charts in here that are great about the correlation between high mortgage rates and low inventory. And this is from National Association of Realtors. And then a 30-year mortgage and Fed fund rate. So this chart shows where the Fed funds rate went down. Oh my God, look at those years where where it was like, 0 or 1 or whatever. Well, and then how it went up. And so basically it shows how the mortgage, followed the Fed funds rate. It's not just that, though. That's not exactly true. There's a correlation, but it also is mainly following the bond market and the 10-year treasury and so forth. But great charts to give people perspective. And this is why I'm saying, I like to use data and charts to go, those are unicorn years. Here's the chart. Here's historically the last 10, 15 years. This is good. Before COVID, we were at 5.5, 5.75. So when we get to that, it'll be like COVID didn't happen. Those were the rates, and things will they're going to go through a period of craziness, and then it'll settle in. Okay. And
it'll be, what's going to be fascinating in about 10 years from now, when you look back on charts like that and you see that dip go all the way down to nothing, it'll just look like craziness. It'll really, really tell the story of COVID.
Hopefully there won't be another, dip because of some crazy, I don't know, so many things going on. You never know. All I'm saying is that's my projection, and others that are out there, based on nothing cataclysmic happening. Okay. Yeah. Now the next chart we have, I love this, and thank you to the Brian Buffini company, because they charted from Q4 2020, okay, which was COVID really, the lockdowns and everything happened March of 2020. It did for us. And so this is the fourth quarter of 2020, showing inflation at 1.2%. Okay. Then benchmarks going into Q2 of 2021, 4.2. Then Q4 of 2021, 6.2. Then in 2022, this is when everything started to go up, right? The inflation really started to ascend higher. It went to 8.3, and then 9.1 was the height at Q3 2022. And then that is right, May, June. That's when interest rates went over 6%. Yeah. And that is when the Fed really started to and then you can see on this chart where the Fed, it took the Fed about there to start making these drastic reductions. And so now we can follow this chart to go from 9.1 to 7.7 at the end of 2022 to 4.9 at Q2 of last year. And it looks like we're ending at 3.2. I think that last one came out, maybe it was 3.1. But 3.2% is the inflation rate. Now, of course, we know that the Fed wants it to go to 2.
Right.
That's their deal. So we're going to have to watch and see. And that's why I think they're not going to, even though they're saying you hear different reports, 2, 3 times, 4 times, they're going to drop it. They're going to drop it a quarter point. We're going to have to wait and see. But I think it's going to take a minute. And I do continue to say the first 2 quarters, I think, are going to be similar, which to me means there's opportunities for buyers still. There's leverage for buyers in certain circumstances until we get to lower rates, more people jumping in, and then the sellers are going to have the leverage. The last couple charts that we have here are great. And again, from Buffini, this was the interest rate, which is just so cool because this really shows the rate. This chart I love, and I'm going to use this a lot to say in 2020, they have a couple points on here. 2020, 3.72. In 2021, down to 2.65. And it was there for a minute because I do know people who are saying they're under 3% for their interest rate on their mortgage, then 3.22. And then we go from 2022 to 2023 and it hit 8% for a little bit there. Not long. It was in the high 7s. But when we saw 8.01, because I remember because I look at it every single day, and then it didn't take long, a week or two, maybe less than 2 weeks, and then it was under 8 again. But
it was at 8, Jan. It was at 8, Jan, just long enough to freak everybody out.
That's right. And so now we're, as a matter of fact, let me just pull up my app, and I always talk about this. If you do not have the Mortgage News Daily app on your phone, you're missing out, not only for the latest daily rates for surveys of lenders across the country without points, but a great article that really they post to say why the rates are moving around. And I tell you, this is where I've learned most of my last couple of years. Lowest mortgage rate in a week after inflation data. So they tell you this report came out, the CPI report came out, the jobs report, and then the markets react, and then the mortgage rates react to all of those things. So yesterday it was 6.72. So it's still high for a lot of people, right? So, but what we're seeing locally is after the holidays, after the first year of the new year, Cosmo and I are out doing our thing, content creation. We're out at new homes, and we're seeing lots of people out at new homes without realtors, which we have to work on that. So anyway, these last couple charts are showing like 8. Buffini is projecting 5.75 is what his bold prediction was for 2024. But again, he said latter part of the year, and I agree with that. And then he's going on to say that he thinks it'll be at around 5 in 2025. So we'll see. That's going to be interesting. But I definitely think we're going to get below 6 next year, but I think it's going to be the second half of the year. And then the transactions are charted here to kind of show, in 2020, we had 5.6. We went up to 6.1 million sales, transactions closed across the country in 2021. Then it dropped a million to 5.1 in 2022. And in 2023, it's down. What is that? 23%?
Yep.
Nationally, 23.8%. I was thinking it was 18. To 3.9 is what the projection from National Association is national sales went from 5.1 to 3.9. That's what you're feeling, realtors. Like I'm down 20% or 25% in my sales this year. A lot of people are saying that now. For whatever reason, we had like a banner year. Okay. We just adjusted. And so the projection from Buffini is back up to, he thinks it'll go up 18% in 2024 because of the rates. And I agree, back up to like 4.6. I think the National Association of Realtors might be a little bit more conservative, and then it'll go higher. So we'll see. So those are the projections. So that says,
well, these are actually from NAR. It's a Buffini chart, but the source is NAR.
Oh yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. They just made the charts look really colorful and cool.
Yeah. The charts are awesome.
So go get those charts. Go get them and give the credit to the Brian Buffini group. it's NAR and Freddie Mac. He's got, Freddie Mac is the rates, but they just put the charts into some really great stuff that I think you can use in your presentations. Let's talk about sellers and how do we shift to it. So this was also from Brian, and this is kind of common sense, but it's really a good list of why is there pent up demand. Top 10 reasons people are going to move in 2024, sell their home. Or really even just move and relocate for buyers as well. So family ties, that has been happening since COVID. Just people wanting to be closer to their family, or aging folks wanting to be closer to their grandkids, needing bigger space for growing families, perhaps. Love the rate, not the house. And that is a big one. And that is where I think the pent up the pent up seller demand is also there, because they're waiting just like buyers for that magical number, which I think is below 6. I'm not in love with my house anymore. I want a bigger house, a different house, a smaller house, a house with a different, a different layout, but I love my rate, so I'm not moving. I can live with my house because I like my payment, right? So that is people that are going to be on that list. Upgrade to a different neighborhood, or where do they want to go? People are buying, there's a lot of people that have money. It's so funny because we have so many comments in our videos that, there's a lot of people that don't have everything. There's a lot of people who are the average income earners in the country, and they are considerably lower than the high percentage of the 5 to 10% who make all the money. Okay. Mm-hmm. But in that group of people, folks, there are folks that are flush with cash and equity because of the years past.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're buying vacation homes first and then maybe selling their home. Okay. A lot of equity means a lot of choice. All right. And the people that might not have equity. So we have the common thing that happens in our country. It just gets worse as time goes by. The haves and the have-nots. The haves have more and the have-nots have less. Okay. So yes, are there people that are going to be scrambling and maybe not be able to buy a house because their income is not going up to cover the cost of housing? Yeah, 100%. That's happening. And then in the other side of the haves, that you've got the people who are investing. There are hedge funds that are buying up houses. There are companies that are building homes to rent. They're building, all across the country. It's brand new construction, but you never buy it. You just get to go rent a nice new home, which is sometimes poorly constructed, in my opinion. But anyway, another thing on his list was legacy of real estate. And this was really powerful. And it was tied to, helping your family. So legacy of real estate. And he was saying, like, where he is in his life, he now has grandkids, kids and grandkids. There are a lot of people who have income, have money, and they're helping their kids or even their grandkids with a down payment.
Oh, for sure.
All right. Or helping them move on to homes and so forth. So downsizing, obviously relocation is always on the list. And then change of work, change of life. Wow. There are so many people who might need to sell their home in your community because they are remote workers and want to go to another area. So you have to think, where are the trends? And then the thing that Dr. Yoon had up on the charts, which was great. Okay. This just says pent-up sellers cannot wait any longer. What is the normal thing that happens over a 2-year period? And it has things like 7 million new babies are born across the country. What else? 3 million marriages, 1.5 million divorces, 7 million people turn 55, or is that 65?
65.
6 million deaths. 6 million starting new jobs, 90 million job switches. So I've been talking about that. We've been doing this on the podcast, saying in the past year or two, if you were going to focus on listings, focus on the D's: divorce, death, probate, and divorce specialties. But these are common milestone things. People get married, they may need to sell a house to move into a new house. Okay, so that's the reality. Life moves on. Okay. Life moves on. We've had a pause because of the rates. It's going to shift at some point and you have to be ready for it. Okay. That was a lot to get into We just took 25 minutes to do the setup. I didn't.
I know, but here I want to tell you something, Jim. This is really interesting, and the number that 7 million turning 65 years old is a huge number, and this is like the boomers are kind of already there, but what was after the boomers? Gen X.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we're kind of between boomers and edge of Gen X.
Here's the thing that is really interesting, and I heard this today when I was watching something on television, and it had a political bent to it, but it relates to what's happening here. This group of people are not the TikTok people. I'm not saying there's not older people on TikTok, but the majority of them are not. So this is a huge market of people that are going to need to downsize or probably going to want to make a move. And you have to think about that idea when you are marketing to those people and how you're going to actually go in and maybe capture that. It's a different game than marketing to people that are in their 20s, the millennials.
So let's talk about where you can find some of these people, because it's going to start with the basics and it's your sphere of influence. Okay. So we always have to go back to our sphere of influence and past clients, because whether they are ready, you got to start there. Yep. If people that have been in homes for a while, that you've been doing business, they may be in those categories we just talked about. So I would start there, and I would start having conversations with people to get a sense of, are they considering a move? I mean, the conversation could be, have you been thinking about, and have you thought over the last couple of years that if the rates were at a certain rate, you would, what do the rates have to be for you to consider making a move? And who do they know? So that's the point. You call your past clients, you check in with them, you see if they're interested or who do they know. So it starts there. And then, of course, you've got expireds and FSBOs and farming. You could get into all kinds of farming on demographics. You could get data that will help you try to find people that are over a certain age. You can buy this data, to Matt's point, where you could look for people that are possible downsizers because they're over a certain age. Okay. You can look for people who don't have a lot of mortgage. That stuff's all recorded if people bought cash. So there's all these things you have to think outside the box of how could you niche farm or send a letter or something to even out-of-state owners, people who maybe have an investment property that they want to sell. You have to think about what you want to niche. And that's the last part, is niching. So for example, if you wanted to work with veterans, you can have a title company or a data company go get you a list of people in your area that have VA loans, for example. Yep. And now you can make a connection with veterans if you specialize in that. Investors typically are going to be, they have their out-of-state address. Not always. They could be institutional investors. They could be big-time investors. They could be mom and pop investors, people who just have another home. So you just need to jump into it, right? And so where I want to go with that is, you start with your database, and then you decide if you're going to niche, which pillar are you going to go for. But here's the deal, guys. You have to think about where you're going to find the sellers, number one. Number two is, are you ready to go out and show your value? Okay, so the last part we want to talk about here, and we have a great list of things here that you could just go grab in our show notes, and I'm going to hit the highlights of them that say upgrade. It's really about upgrade your presentation. Now, what I want to caution you against doing, which is what I watched happen when we had the frenzy of people listing a property and it getting multiple offers in hours. There will be a tendency to go out on a presentation and think you don't have to do any of these things.
Yeah.
And I'm going to suggest to you, with the way the industry has had its challenges in this past year plus, with things that are happening at NAR and just crazy, personal issues that are happening with changes of leadership and allegations to the NAR commission lawsuits and other big companies being named in these lawsuits and settlement, and one already being found for the plaintiffs. All that is going to be going through the court system for a while, but that is in the news. It was in the news. And of course, the news cycles are so fast. It's not so much in the news as much, but it'll keep coming back. There are going to be sellers that are going to really push on, what do I get for the commission that you're charging? Mm-hmm. So the days are gone. They should have been gone a long time ago, where you can go out and charge X and not do anything. And I mean, not everybody does this, but there are a lot of lazy folks that are like, why do I have to do anything if I just have to put a sign in the yard and I get multiple offers? Well, you need to do all these things because your job as the listing agent is to get as many possible great offers, so your seller can really walk away with the best deal. All right. And the only way to do that is to do more than put it on the MLS. So to me, it starts 100% always with hiring a videographer and a photographer. Don't go out and take pictures with your own phone. For God's sakes, don't do them vertically. It just makes me crazy to this day when we're in a market where not all the houses are selling, that there are realtors in my MLS that have horrible photos. I almost want to call them as a coach and go, are you trying not to sell your home? Are you trying to like hurt your seller? Because nobody wants to look at this house when you have a bunch more I could look at right now in this, if it's not like in great condition. It's just terrible, Matt. I can't even believe it. It doesn't happen all the time, but I come across pictures and I'm like, wow. Luckily, majority of people do get this, and they are.
This is greatly improved over the decades, but it's still bad. You're right.
I think you need to use drone photography. You hire somebody, they all have it, 360 degrees. You need to get as many photos because people are sitting on their phones. I've got buyers right now because I can't get them to come use my app. I gave up on that. Now I just say, hey, Matt, what's your favorite place to look for houses? It's either Zillow, Realtor.com, or Redfin, one of those three. And I'm working with a buyer right now, and he's sending me pictures from Zillow. This is the house I like. This is the house I like. And I'm finding them online and sending them, in MLS. Then he's finding things that aren't what he says he wants, but that's the process you walk through a buyer with. But they're sitting there waiting because they have a search saved. And when your listing comes on the market, you have that much time. It's within 5 minutes, it's on Zillow, guys. Okay. Within 10, 15 minutes, it's on Realtor.com. You don't have time to go, the professional photos are coming a week from now. That moment in time is gone. People are either, there are 50 photos that show the house, the overhead, floor plans, what's in the community. People are going to star that and say, I want to see it if it matches their criteria. So that's the biggest thing. And I think next is video marketing. So photos, getting a video done, or you doing it, and that you either hire somebody or you do more than the video. You can do a video walkthrough tour, which you can put up online as well or put up on YouTube. But we do short form videos. I mean, our whole thing is we go out there and say, we're going to do the video for YouTube. We're going to come in. We're going to talk about a quick walkthrough that we're going to put on Reels for Facebook and Instagram, shorts on YouTube, TikTok. We're going to do another video that talks about 5 reasons to live in this neighborhood. And the 5th reason is going to be to live in your house, but it's going to highlight the features. Just these 2 things alone could set you apart from a lot of people. And this is what's required because you need to just be talking about, this is what the buyer wants. This is why we do it. Okay. 3D virtual tours, I think, are still important. Zillow will give it a little push as well. People like to walk through, whether it's Matterport or the Zillow version. It's great. If you have a real estate website, your listings are obviously going to go on there, but you can spotlight them and you can just make sure they're optimized for it. Social media is the next big thing. What are you doing? Are you going to post the video that you did of your walkthrough of your house? You can obviously post it across all your platforms, but you can also boost it. You could pay for an ad and send it out there, and send the video out to your lists and stuff to show people. Next, I have put a marketing plan together for what I like to call the mega open house, right? Meaning it's not just a normal open house. So this is everything from making sure, I'm going to tell you the last times I've done open houses, the most people that showed up came because they saw it on Zillow. They saw it advertised on Realtor.com. And next it was the signs. Okay, so that really works. Posting it through your MLS, it usually gets distributed to those platforms. People are using those apps and they look for open houses this weekend or whatever. But you can invite neighbors. You have to just go big with this, right? Promote your open house with an ad on a social media platform, letting people know. Plenty of signs, I think, is huge. But you can make it a big deal and you can make it an event. People that maybe do it with some other realtors in a neighborhood, and you could have like a food truck, or you could do a barbecue, or you could have refreshments. Putting the banners up and the flags. You have to do it in communities that let you do all that. But I really, really, really think that open houses are huge. People are going to be out. And if
No,
you have
there's
the
no
listing
doubt about that.
and
Jan, it's so funny.
holding-
I have a couple safe searches on Zillow just because I like to know what's going on in the neighborhood, and I think a lot of people do that, right? But I love the way that they do, the way they send you messages. You'll get the a new house on the market thing, new listing has happened. But I love it's on Thursday or Friday, one of the two. You get that email that says, "Let's plan your weekend." And it shows you all the open houses for that weekend. It's very, you don't need to have, you kept going back to the whole, you've given up on sending people to your app. I think you're absolutely right there. A lot of time and money's been spent on that in our business, and we promoted it for years. You know what I mean? But you don't need to do that. People are out there finding it, and it's just delivered to them so easily.
And Zillow is the master at
getting
people to stay on their app with something just like that.
Yep.
All you have to do is just start looking on Zillow. And like I did it as a consumer, and I keep getting these things to say, here's another house in your area you might like, because at one point a year or two ago, I haven't stopped it because it's just intriguing to me. It's very sticky, and that's why you've got to leverage Zillow and then get them to work with you.
Yeah, it's like my point is, that they've mastered that, like you said, so focus your attention on other things, correct. Right? You know what I mean? You don't need to do that anymore. That's
so
done.
You've got to leverage it by making sure your stuff's on Zillow and your open house is on Zillow. And then the last piece about this is to go live. You could go live on your open houses, and right before you could start a little early, get your signs up and say, hey, be on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok live or even YouTube live, and just say, come on out to our open house. We're having it today and all that. So you can even do virtual open houses that let me take you on a tour if you can't get out here today, and I'll answer your questions. Lives really are powerful if you have a bit of a following. So those are some easy things that they're easy. You just have to put them into your thing, and you might have to spend some money hiring a videographer, right?
That's right.
So obviously other things that I'm sure you're doing, email marketing, this is all I'm giving you these ideas that this is where you upgrade, and it needs to be in your professional presentation that you're going to give or leave behind, or a little booklet. Use Canva. That's what we do. Make it look professional. Okay, don't go in there and wing these listing presentations. This is this is the X point plan that we do on every listing. Even we're going in and planning for this, even if we get 20 offers tomorrow, because we didn't even put your home on the market until we had the photos. So I'm investing in your home, and we haven't even sold it yet.
Yep. Okay,
so don't do this one picture of the front of the house. All the others are coming later to save you from having to do it. It's just doing a disservice to the seller. And it's what puts the pressure on us as an industry to say, you're not worth the amount you're charging me. Okay. Yep. So obviously it goes on the online platforms. That happens automatically, like Zillow and all that. But you need to make sure it's enhanced. So you have a great description. You have great photos. That description you put in your MLS is what gets pulled and put on those sites. So
which, by the way, AI can do for you. We've talked about that with Chat.
Use AI, right? Use ChatGPT to help you. I got something of that coming up next, right there. Chatbots and AI. So leverage the power of everything. Everything out there right now has some kind of a AI integration to it. It's wild. It's really wild how quickly things are happening with, just like email marketing and all of it, right? Matt, just every conceivable tool you're using has some kind of AI integration in it now, but leverage it to help you. And that's where it's going to help you with listing descriptions, marketing ideas. If you have a website, you can integrate a chat bot and things like that. You can even get even higher tech with there's so many things that are coming out with augmented reality and virtual reality, virtual staging. Things that you can do if you have a vacant house. You have to disclose that it's virtually staged, but it does help people see what the possibility of the house looks like. And the last couple things here are use predictive marketing. That's been around for quite a while, where you can get with title companies or other third-party companies that will help you figure out who could you market this home to. All right. Which is also geo-targeting. Like, is there a demographic or something that you want to be maybe in a different state that you're wanting to say, look at this house. Like here in Vegas, we have people moving from California and other places. Do you want to get into advertising that way? And then the last tip here, and this is so funny because in this day and age, you should certainly not be working with any technology like a website. People are hardly on their desktops. So if your marketing is not mobile friendly, people are going to pass on you. Meaning, if you have a flyer, if you have a web, like a small mini website that is that you can get. There's tons of companies out there where you can put your photos up, and then you can send a link, and you can have 123 Elm Street, Las Vegas.com, and send that to people, and it will have all the information and the virtual tours and what's around and the demographics. If that's not mobile responsive, then people are going to be like, you don't know what you're doing. Okay. So everything that you send out has to look good on a mobile device. Okay. And that should be no problem unless you are using like 1990s technology, right?
There you go, which you might be.
So the big thing that we wanted to cover today was, are you on top of what's happening in the market? Go get up to speed, go get the NAR stats, go watch that Brian Buffini's bold predictions, good stuff. Make sure you're feeling comfortable with all of that. Upgrade your marketing for listings. And right now, plan now. I don't think tons of sellers are putting their home. No, January, we saw an increase in listings. That's normal.
Yeah,
people wait for the
normal.
holidays, but it's not a huge increase yet. But more and more people are going to decide finally that I want to go ahead and move forward, especially as the rates tick down. So my point is, get ahead of it. Get ahead of it now so you're ready, and start thinking about how you could reach out. Start with your database. Start reaching out to people. Get the temperature of what are they thinking. You might have 300 people in your database. Are there 10 people who've been waiting for the interest rates to come down that are going to list their property? If you haven't reached out to them, what would 10 listings do to your business right now?
No kidding.
What would 10 listings do? So my point is, they're out there, but if you're not talking to your people, they might go somewhere else. So there it is.
Good stuff. Hey, Jen O'Brien, we're 11 days, 12 days into the month right now. I'd like to put a question out there to everybody. Have you done the daily? Have you started your year doing the daily? Because, we didn't talk about it today, but we always do. Jen O'Brien does. I know she does, because we talk about it all the time.
I have it over here.
Yeah.
I look at it over here. I have it right here.
Yeah, if you want more information on the daily, not only can you just go to our YouTube channel and learn about that, but go over to the website and download our MyPath spreadsheet. Has the daily in there, talks about how you actually create your daily, right? Then it's got a bunch of other tools that will help you throughout the weeks and months and throughout the rest of 2024. So go over to WBNLcoaching.com, go to our freebies page and download MyPath on there, and then just freaking continue to do the daily, right, Jan O'Brien?
Holy gosh, it's really become such a simple mantra for me. And I have developed even a morning routine that is working for me, that involves meditation and the healthier stuff I'm eating. I'm drinking more water, and it will have a walk. It's been very cold, so it'll be, I've got something else that I just discovered that I'm just doing. It's kind of like yoga type thing. So anyway, I'm into that now. Finally, this is the year where Jan is doing the morning routine as part of the daily. And I'm always doing our content creation and lead follow-up. And we're seeing, Matt knows for real, I had to call my life coach the other day just to go, all right, how this year is starting out weird. And then I just realized I needed to kind of just rant and get it out, and then to get refocused on the basics, which is the daily, get back to what you have to do to generate whatever you're doing to generate business, and focus on it and set an intention, take action. And literally that day and into the next day, we had 5 really good leads.
That's awesome. It's really important to do that mind dump every once in a while, because if you get caught up in there, it's a scary place. So get it out, people, and then, move on. And like you said, we talk about it all the time. You put it out there into the universe and, good things happen. So
it sure does.
Anyway,
whatever you put out there comes back to you. So
well, that's true.
Make it be positive. Don't stay in the negative loop. I'm telling you, probably the best thing that has happened to me in the months past is cutting out as much TV and news. I don't watch it. And I'm telling you, that has changed my attitude. I'm aware. I'm not keeping my head in the sand. I'm just not getting sucked into that energy. I'm not, because it's not helping
the right
me.
Energy for sure.
Nope.
All right, everyone. Good advice, sage advice here as for your mental well-being. So
yes, indeed.
You can find all of our show notes over at WBNLpodcast.com. Great graphs we talked about today, and there's that link in there to the Brian Buffini presentation as well. So that's all going to be over there at the show notes over at WBNLpodcast.com. This was episode 273. As we always say, everyone, get up, get out. I'm going to add every week that we talk this year that you need to go find your joy. Go find your joy, people, and be forever wandering but not lost.
Crazy little thing called Let me close this and see if it's that noise isn't on. Glad you can't hear it.
No, I can't hear a thing.
I don't know. Somebody's just decided to do something weird. Find your freaking joy.
Find your freaking joy.